And now we migrated to East University. Wow, perfect. Now we know how there's a type. We riches you before we rich you. Please, that's you study yes. And we're now one more especially so many of the guests were with us. So we want I am here to serve your advice. Just tell me how we had all the wishes to do it. We need那不一样，因为我是。
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to New Taipei City Urban Diplomacy Forum today. And I have the honor to serve as today's master of ceremony and host of the day. So I would like to invite our VIP speaker of the opening section, Dr. Lucia Xiaoxue Chen, our Vice President for International Affairs of this university and now a professor of Department of Global Politics and Economics at Taipei University. Let's give her a round of applause. And so.
Morning. On behalf of Taipei
University, let me extend my warm welcome to each and every one of you. Taipei, New Taipei City Government and the Taipei University have a very close relationship since the Taipei University established in this location. Taipei University is established in 1950. So since its establishment, our founder, Dr. Clement Zhang, realized a very important education goal for Taipei University, like is globalization and information-oriented education and future-oriented education. So Taipei University, we have an office of international and cross-strait affairs. Since its establishment until today, we have 252 partner universities all around 36 countries. And so we always use this resource to introduce our partner sister university to our local. For example, last year we invite around 20 European country students and to introduce their culture to gender junior high school. So gender junior high school students, they can learn about French culture or German culture or until Spanish culture. Now they don't necessarily to go abroad. So far, we have some union with some junior high school, for example, around Zhuwei High School, around here, only 5 minutes by car. So I'm so happy that we have this opportunity, have this forum today in Taipei University. That's our social responsibility as a university in the local side. So I hope that this forum around the New Taipei government urban diplomacy forum can be very successful and can be a model for all the coming forum in the future. Thank you so much and have a good day. Thank you.
And second, I would like to invite the team of our College of International Affairs and also the Professor in Department of Global Politics and Economics of the Taipei University to give us another talk. So please, Dr. Bob.
Director General Yao and Chairman Zheng, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say today is a very good. I would like to say thank you to coming to Taipei University in this very morning to participate in the 2022 Taipei City, New Taipei City.
New Taipei City
Urban Diplomacy Forum, which is organized jointly by New Taipei City government and the Taipei University. I have better to my note. Today we have the diplomats from the Singapore, Japan, and the Netherlands, and we also have the experts of urban. We will have experts of urban diplomacy from different universities to share their point of views and to be a discussion, allow us to have a deeper understanding about this. So, however, the most important things of today's event is not to organize this event only, not about this forum only. This is an opportunity to allow us to meet each other, to communicate with each other. And also, now is the time of globalization. So, usually about the diplomacy, we talk about politics, military, economy. Right now, we are talking more about the cultural and human beings, human rights. So, urban diplomacy was regarded as a second track. It's the second track. Honestly speaking, I think, to my personal perspective, I prefer for the urban diplomacy as a cultural and human exposures. To a whole exposure, which enable us to know each other and making friends, and to share the value of multiculturalism. So We are making friends now, and therefore I wish we have a very successful forum and strengthen our relationship and the friendship. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhao, for your kind introduction. And next, I'm going to invite, our chairman of the Department of Overseas International Relations, Dr. Zheng Xinmo, to give us another talk.
Director General of the Secretariat, New Taipei City, Ms. Ting Yu, and Vice President of International Affairs, Taipei University, Dr. Chen Xiaoqi, and the Dean of College, Superior of International Affairs, Dr. Bao Zhenghao, and distinguished guests, and my dear students. And on behalf of the DDIR, co-organizers and who hosted this forum, I would like to cordially, first of all, welcome all the guests, and your participation guarantee a successful result of this conference. And I'm especially grateful to New Taipei City government who sponsored this forum. New Taipei City has long been supporting the activity of this kind. And being a citizen of New Taipei City, I'm so proud of the momentum of internationalization. And many of our students were taking part of many projects that make a very vigorous momentum of internationalization of the city. Okay, and I'm very proud of this. And also, and today we are honored to be blessed with many distinguished just moderators and presenters. Okay, so I need also Xiaowen to introduce. Okay, our first moderator, is Professor Lu Yezhong, and who is the chairperson of Department of Diplomacy, Zhengzhi University, and also distinguished scholars in this field. And our second moderator is my colleague James Chen, and who is very much welcomed. I jealous very much. Welcome my student and our assistant professor. Okay. And also, we are really honored to have just deputy representative of Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association, this is Mr. Adori Takashi, and also we have just deputy trade representative from Singapore Trade Office in Taipei. Okay, Wang Zhonghan. He's not here, right? Okay. But very much welcomed, and a very beautiful lady, a senior policy officers from Netherlands office in Taipei. Okay, this is Lisa Laban, and also to this distinguished discussant, our Cai Xixin, former director, and now is the professor of Department of Politics and Economics. And then another friend, Tamara, Dr. Tamara, from National Taipei University. And besides, we have Tim, from ICRT, and also an orphan of our university. Okay, so and all of them would bring to us their splendid viewpoint and argument, and that's made me very confident that I can assure you this must be a very successful forum. And let's wish a very successful one. And thank you.
Thank you. So the last but not least, we are going to invite the Director General of the Secretariat from New Taipei City Government to give us some words of encouragement. Ms. Yao, please.
Good morning, all the students and our distinguished guests, Vice President Chen, Dean Bao, and Professor Chen, Professor Lu, Dr. Hatawi, and Ms. Levin, Dr. Tsai, team, and all the good friends and students on the site and also online. I'm so honored and so humbled to be able to be co-hosting this forum with Taipei University and to host this urban diplomacy forum. We're going to discuss about new paradigm. All these career diplomats that we're bringing them here. If you look at their educational backgrounds, among the speakers, you'll find all the top, you've collected all the top universities. I was just chatting with them. Tokyo University, Kyoto University, Waseda University, George Washington University, Peking University, Leuven University, Singapore University, you name them all. They are not just frontline diplomats, career diplomats, they are also distinguished academic professors and researchers. But you also have me as the Director General working in the city government, and why we are here to co-host this forum with Taipei University. That means your future can have a very wide perspective. It's about your mindset. It's not about where you are. We're so proud of Taipei University. It's the best private university in Taiwan. And where it is in New Taipei. So we also want you to understand what New Taipei city government is doing. Can we work on international affairs? Can we work on international exchanges? Also from city government. Yes, it is possible. That's why we're talking about a new possibility, new urban diplomacy. It is possible. It's all about your mindset. And you also have your alumni working in New Taipei city government. Your professor also has been collaborating with New Taipei city government. And this is probably the first time many of the students meet career diplomats from Japan, from Singapore, and from Netherlands. You can be the next Dr. Hatomi. You can be next Lisa, next Philip Wong from who will be coming later in our second panel. So what I wanted to say is that I hope this forum is not the first time, but it's the beginning of our new collaborations. So I encourage all the students continue watch what New Taipei City government is doing and enjoy today's forum. You have the rare opportunity to interact, to ask questions to all these diplomats and do that. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, as I quote from President Biden of the United States, I think the urban city forum, they are making a big progress because we are trying to copy the model that Biden said. We are making foreign policy maker to the middle class. And all of you are from, most of you are from the middle class family. So the diplomacy will be no longer that kind of high profile, very distant subject for all of you. So I think you guys can enjoy the urban city forum, urban diplomacy forum today as you participate in this forum. And next, I'm going to invite Dr. Director General Yao to give us, the awards and certification all of our distinguished VIPs. So please, we just come over to the podium and so that we can give the award to all of the VIPs, Vice President and Dean, and also Dr. Chairman Chen. Director Yao, she is expressing her gratitude to assistance from Taipei University as well as our college management team.
觉得可以做 promotion。
介绍谢谢，对，我们一起上场好，对，谢谢。然后我们一起拿着合照，对，然后我也拿你的这个，对。对，谢谢。
一二三 ，one two three， one more one two。
谢谢。
I have a suggestion. We can have this book.
Of course.
Everyone have the book and we take a picture together for the
好
promotion of new
对，
Taipei
对。
city.
我们是待会再照这张，先找，然后先照一张，对，可不可以再拿一份给谢教授？对，
是在上面吗？
看了对，
要上来吗？
这样好。
One two three， one more。
那可以脱口罩照一张吗？
可以。
好。
对。One two three, one more. Okay, one two.
对，好，谢谢。
多支持。
很棒，谢谢。
And next, I want to invite all of our VIPs, Dr. Tsai and Dr. Hattori.
下一个是讲者啊，对。
And also Miss Lisa from the National Office Taipei, and also Dr. Kamara.
校友，淡江的我们请James老师转交好不好？对，可以那个可以装。好。我们请那个 speaker 上台。对 Yes, Lisa. And we have a special ceremony.
So we will have a special ceremony to, give but also the certificate to all of our distinguished panelists and, speakers of the day. So, Director General Yao, please, again, to join us. Come on, please.
So this is very special because it's not from only me, but from the students. So this special ceremony is the certificate of thanks, appreciation. It's not just from New Taipei City government, but from the student representatives. And I think this is very important that we work together to thank our speakers.
One, two, three. Can we close?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we are going to take a look. And please just remain on your seat because the photographer will come to the podium in the front and we take a picture all together with students, in this venue.
Have this.
So just keep smiling, and look at the front.
Hold the books.
Hold the book.
Show mask on. 先戴口罩一张。
Okay, so we got a slogan today, New Taipei City SDGs. So can we all say it together, New Taipei City SDGs?
New Taipei City.
New Taipei City SDGs. SDGs stands for Sustainable Development Goal from the United Nations. Okay, so can we take off our next now? Okay, so one of next, please.
One, two, more. One, two, three. Another one. One, two, three. One, two, three. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Good experience.
赶快去，对。
我有校友，
已经很支持了，谢谢。
Okay,
我再送过去，对。
Have a nice day.
Thanks for coming.
好，下次有经验要做
Okay, so we come to move to the first panel. So I would like to invite, the moderator of first panel, Dr. Ria Zhou from National Zhejiang University Department of Diplomacy, and he will be the moderator as well as the presenter who, share his observation on urban diplomacy. Please, Dr. Wu. And also, we will invite the deputy representative, Dr. Hattori, to be the keynote speaker of this panel. So, Dr. Hattori, please. And also our presenter as well as discussant, Dr. Tsai.
Okay, thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zhong Lu from the Department of Diplomacy, National Zhejiang University. It is really my honor to have this great opportunity to interact with you in this wonderful weather, on this wonderful campus, and this is a wonderful Thursday. Agree? Okay, so for today, the whole event, the whole conference will kick off formally with our discussion later. So before that, please allow me, first of all, to express my gratitude to Zhejiang University and also to New Taipei City Government for co-organizing this wonderful event. I believe, at least personally, I would benefit a lot from our discussion later. Today, for this panel, we have actually two distinguished experts. The first one is Dr. Hattori from the Japan Taiwan Exchange Foundation. Dr. Hattori, he is a seasoned career diplomat. He also received his PhD in economics from Kyoto University, and he has been stationed in Taiwan for a few months. Okay, yeah, but because he's as I just mentioned, he's a seasoned career diplomat. So I believe each of us would benefit a lot from his presentation and keynote speech later. The other expert is Professor Cai Xixun from the Graduate Institute of Japanese Political and Economic Studies, Zhejiang University. I interacted with Professor Cai earlier on for a few times, and I know that he is the expert on Japanese studies in Taiwan. And for today, he will discuss a little bit about the city diplomacy between Japan and Taiwan. And as you can see from the agenda, in addition to the role as a moderator, I'm going to also play a role as a presenter. So after our two distinguished experts deliver their speech, I will follow their insights to share my own observation about the conception of urban diplomacy with all of you. Okay, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Hattori for his keynote speech.
Thank you, Dr. Liu, for the introduction, and I'd also like to thank University and also New Taipei City for inviting me to speak. Today's topic is urban diplomacy. And I'd like to talk about this issue from my own perspective. So first, I'd like to talk about what is urban diplomacy, and then I talk about role of cities in international affairs. I touch upon several examples, which one of it is SDGs, which we I think we all know. Anybody knows about SDGs? Please raise your hand. Some of them
Still don't.
Still don't. But maybe after today's session, they know. They all know. And then another example is about climate change. And then I will talk about some conclusion. When I was a student at the university on studying international relations, we all talk about diplomacy in more on nation-state and nation-state relations. So more about diplomats from the central government and diplomats from the central government discuss about issues and try to set up the various issues. That actually changed a lot in the recent years in academia and also in real world. If you study about urban diplomacy, you can find lots of new articles about the role of the cities and in the international diplomacy. So this is actually really interesting, important topic in your study about how cities can make their important role in international field. So here I just wrote one city in it's a model. So national nation state A will interact with some other city B in nation state B. So these interactions have certain role in creating new, say, value in this field. So this might happen in the several cities from one state and several states from the other state. So this might be a good exchange. And perhaps more, this city might go to both B and D, and then this goes to others. So that also makes another good dynamic on that. And this is only one, two state, but if there is a, say, nation state C here, and then more dynamics will be created by having, let's say, urban diplomacy in this issue. So there are certainly potential for cities to take some role in that. So I kind of highlight 4 areas in considering the role of cities. First, economic affairs. There are certainly we are facing economic activities in our activities. So the cities can take certain role on that. One example is that TSMC, the semiconductor industry, has a role in this is called Kumamon. It's a character of the Kumamoto prefecture of the, say, Yurikara. It's some character which try to kind of promote their own region or their cities about, and this represents, this is, I don't know what it is, but this is some character to show the Kumamoto. And TSMC decided to invest and create, establish a factory in Kumamoto prefecture. I'm sure they try to look for various places here and also United States or some other places, maybe in Europe. But they decided to go to Japan, especially to the Kumamoto prefecture. That's because of the attractiveness of the Kumamoto prefecture, which has good, it's in the Kyushu area, and which has say electricity, it has good water and good surrounding factories to support the semiconductor. So that kind of attractiveness will bring those foreign investment to a particular place, which create the say relation on the economic affairs through the initiative of the city. So that kind of things can happen. So another example is culture. Culture is also important aspects in the, I guess, in the daily life, and so that aspect cities and can take a role to create a good interaction. Environmental affairs is also the area which cities can take initiative. And I will talk about those later. National security is traditionally a diplomacy area, and certainly there are roles for cities to kind of support or initiate something in this field. Maybe we can discuss it later. So this is this. What is this?
New Taipei.
New Taipei. What is this?
Japan.
Do you know what is this? What is this?
三重。
三种，
嗯
三种，
三重。
三种
对
区，
三重市。
三种
对
区，三种区，三种区。This is 三种県。
Oh. They are sister.
So,
district.
New Taipei City and Sanchong Prefecture is a sister city.
Cities. Yes.
So
Yes.
this is maybe because of the name has a same name. So they created these relations between Sanchong and Sanchong. But they created a MOU in 2013, I think.
Correct.
And then after that, there were lots of the
Visits.
visits,
And students.
students, and various activities are ongoing, which created the space for the cultural interaction and create a closer contacts in, I say, from each. So this kind of things can be initiated by New Taipei City. Sustainable Development Goals was set in 2015 by United Nations efforts to set up the goal to 2030. And they set up 17 goals of the various areas, which needs to be achieved to have the, I guess, the better word. And here is global efforts. But cities can have a certain role for that. In Japan, many cities say they are SDGs future city. So they claim they will do their own actions to achieve those SDG goals by taking various actions. And here from after 2018 to now, there are many cities pledged they are going to do those things. And I think that the Japanese government also try to identify and kind of encourage those cities activities. So it's not the country, but the cities will take their roles on working on SDGs. So those cities said that there will be SDGs future city from Hokkaido to Kumamoto, Okinawa, and various places from those 5 years. So those doing their own, and also this the Japanese government tried to set up several activities, kind of a model for others. So they identify those places, those are yellow ones. So those things in Japan try to do. So perhaps here might do something to further encourage SDGs in the city level can be considered. Climate change is also important aspects when we consider about the I guess future. In also 2015, there was a Paris Agreement, which that all countries or all participants or all need to achieve to reduce the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions.
Net zero.
And net zero is something most of the countries in the world are trying to set and achieve in 2050. This is what happened in Japan. In Japan, cities started to pledge they are going to do net zero by 2050. Right after those kind of movements happened. And these different cities, 191 cities, prefectures, cities, and others, villages pledge they will make net zero in 2050. This happened before Japan, then Prime Minister Suga mentioned Japan will take the to announce pledge net zero in 2050. That was happened in 2018. So that's something cities can take their role to actually make the country or make it more globally to take the actions towards something important. Taiwan also pledged net zero in 2050 this year. And so I think cities in Taiwan also can consider what kind of actions can be taken in this city and what can be done in their various other sectors. there are international network of the cities regarding the sustainability, which is called ICRE. It is the various cities members which try to do networking of the cities and try to make their movements towards sustainable future. I guess this is 2,500 local regional governments are committed to that. And from more than people. Just check the Taipei and Taichung and the Tainan, those are maybe
Yeah.
some maybe
All
yeah,
members.
So that so what I'm trying to say is that the cities can go beyond the border to have the network and create something, doing something jointly. So, conclusion. First, urban diplomacy has become more important now. So you have something to do. There are many places where cities can play a role. Economic affairs, or cultural aspects, or some other areas. You can think of various aspects. Which area and what kind of things cities can do. Sustainable development goals, which is the theme of today, and this covers lots of areas and certainly difficult goals. And so, not just the central government or some others, but the cities or maybe university or students can consider something what you can do. Climate change is also crucial for us to prevent. So we need to consider what to do. So I think each of you can do something, and maybe each of you need to talk with others and consider what is actually necessary to do. So my final point is that what you should do is something you, as a student of the Dangang University, consider and thus making the network with others from the different places, from Japan or Netherlands or from other places, and try to make those important things go ahead. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Dr. Hattori. Your keynote speech is very insightful and informative. Especially, you highlighted the importance of conducting city and urban diplomacy, and also you actually explained why this is important also for Taiwan and Japan to forge those ties in the city level. That's wonderful. That's great. And I think the conclusion part in your presentation is also very insightful. And especially you highlighted the very important question, what should we do next? So maybe we will save some time for later for further discussion on that. Thank you very much. Now, please join me in welcoming Professor Tsai for his response.
I'm Tsai. I have a suggestion because we are living in the new Taipei city. So I think our new Taipei city must build a sister city relation with the Tokyo. Why not? Because we are new Taipei city, not Taipei city. So I will suggest one. 2022, our relation with the Tokyo. And Hattori-san just mentioned about SDG and sustainability. When I was in the Tokyo University, I'm a research in Tokyo University doing the SDG. At that time, I'm not so sure what is SDG, what is the sustainability, because at that time, it's 2000 should be the 2009. Because I didn't go to school, I just go there for the vacation and just watch it around. But my director just told me, we belong to the SDG, we belong to the sustainability. So at that time, I didn't know what is the sustainability until recently. I finally understand what is the SDG. So Hattori-san just mentioned about SDG, what is Japan is doing in Japan's role, what can we do? So when I suggest the new Taipei city must build some kind of connection, the best one should be the sister city relation with the Tokyo, because not only we are new Taipei city, also Taipei city office in Banqiao. You know, the office in Banqiao. How about in Tokyo? Tokyo has 23 sections. One of this section is called Banqiao. In Japan, it's called Itabashi. So we have the Banqiao, they have the Itabashi. So you can see Itabashi over there. You can see this one. So we have some kind of relationship. But how about the train? You can see the Itabashi train station is over there. They also has the new Itabashi train station. So how about Taipei? Taipei, you know the Banqiao station on the similar one. That's why I suggest new Taipei city and Tokyo. I will cite the Hattori-san's office because the Japanese government has some kind of data, almost about 2 years or 3 years, to do the study about Taiwan image or Taiwan thinking to the Japan. So, for example, this data, I'm so impressed. 2009, 2011, 2012, 2015, 2018, 21. Except Taiwan, which country you like best? Always Japan. I'm also confused why United States is always number 2, number 3. But how about the data? Data shows that we didn't like the United States so much. We like Japan a lot. Japan is always only one. So in 1970, should be 1979, one book from Harvard University is called Japan is number 1. So to Taiwan, Japan is still number 1, even after about 50 years. So to us, it's still number 1. That's why you can see this data. And maybe you can say, okay, this one is only for the whole Taiwan. How about the age? You can see from age to think about your image. Do you like Japan? The young student, young person, especially for the 20 to 29 years old, they like Japan so much, including 30 to 39 or 21 years. Also, the middle age, they like Japan so much. So I just show you the data. And the next question is, do you think Japan is so close to Taiwan? I mean, to the whole Taiwan people? 29, 2011, 2012, 2015, 2018, 2021, so high. How about the new one? New one, I mean, 2021, 77% think we must close. We have some kind of close feeling to the Japan. Maybe you can say another data say, maybe you don't think Japan is so close. Only 6%. Only 6% think we are not so close. So you can say almost everyone think we like Japan. We feel they are so close. But I must say it again, I'm still confused. Why we didn't like the United States so much? We like Japan so much. And because New Taipei City, the location is in the North Taiwan. So I use the North Taiwan data to think about this one. For 2021, 78%. I mean, the total percentage is 77, but North Taiwan is 78%. That's why North Taiwan feel Japan so close, more than the average, the whole Taiwan. How about not so close? Only 5%. And this one, what's your image to the whole Japan? A couple years ago, I forgot how long ago, about maybe 6 years or 7 years ago. At that time, I think our image to Japan should be the manga subculture. Maybe you can say the pop culture, maybe you can say the J-pop. But at that time, I'm so surprised. Our feeling to Japan, the number one is always their nature, environment, so clean, so beautiful. So next time, I suggest you to use the internet to check the one drink is called the Santori. Santori maybe you can say the beer, or also the tea, also the soda. The homepage, the first word is water. Or you can check it, water. And the background is the mountain. Because if you have a beautiful mountain, you will have a clean water, beautiful water, delicious water. If you have delicious water, you can make a delicious drink. That's why Taiwanese people love Japan. First image, beautiful nature. So beautiful nature. How about Tokyo? Tokyo is a big city, so big. More than 10 million people live in Tokyo. But even so much people live in Tokyo, the environment is so beautiful. That's why I think in Taipei City, we must build a beautiful city, clean city, and so lovely city. So we must make some kind of connection with the Tokyo. So how about vacation? Because we know the Japanese government will open the door, open the border. Should be the October, I forgot, it's 11 or 15. We can go to Japan, no visa. But recently, only one problem. We didn't have enough the airplane. We cannot pay the ticket. The ticket is too expensive. I asked them why, because they said suddenly open the border, so we didn't have so much airplane. So the problem is the ticket, the cost. But how about the Davos meeting? Davos meeting should be this year. I forgot it's May 30 or May 31st. Anyway, is this year May. They publish this kind of data. They say in the whole world for the vacation, which country is the number one? Japan, 2021. United States only number 2. So the travel tourism, Japan number 1. Number 1 compared to the beautiful nature, because our feeling we like Japan beautiful nature, the beautiful, the flower, especially for the sakura, and some kind of clean water, beautiful city. So for the Taiwanese people, we go to the North Tokyo, North Japan for the Aomori, Miyagi, and Akita, and Niigata, because the nature over there is pretty beautiful. And what kind of field you like the best? Always travel. Number 1, for the 2018 and 2021, travel. And the second one is the eating. So just I said a long time ago, I think we like Japan, the first one should be the subculture, J-pop, or the manga. But you can see manga or subculture is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 6. So Patricia, about 2 weeks ago, He just came to our school, make this kind of speech. He's talking about Japan travel policy and what should I say, a local revitalization. Local revitalization, it means we can go to the small town, just Hattori-san said local. He used the word is called local. If we go to the Miyagi, we go to Albany, they will have this kind of job. If they have the job, they will rebuild the city. So he just mentioned the local revitalization. But actually, this word must, I think, created by the Prime Minister Abe. I forgot it's the 2013 or 14, around the 2013 or 14, create this kind of policy. So how about the real data? Because 2020 and 2021, COVID-19, we cannot go there. So the data 2020, 2021, or even 2022, so not so many people went for the vacation just because the COVID-19. But before COVID-19, 2018, 2019, 2018, the total population go to the Japan for vacation is 31 million people around the world. How about 2019? The total population of people went to Japan for vacation is around 32 million. But how about Taiwan? We must think about this one. Taiwan population is only should be around 23 million. Around 23 million. 2018 is more than 4 million went to Japan. 2019, almost 5 million. Almost 5 million people went to Japan. So the repeater, so much. A repeater, they will go there 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, a couple of more times. So just as I say, Japanese government will open the border. So many people, they are so excited. They cannot sleep. They are waiting to buy the ticket. So the ticket is so expensive. 2 reasons. The first one, they didn't have enough aircraft. The second one, too much people want to go to Japan. So you can see the data. You can see the data, we always number 3. Sometimes we are number 1. Because sometimes number 1 is the mainland China, sometimes South Korea, or sometimes Taiwan. But unfortunately, South Korea and mainland China will be affected by the political relation. If these 2 countries, for example, Japan, China, Japan, South Korea, and some kind of political argument or dispute, their people, they are just so nervous. They cannot go to the Japan. How about Taiwan? We don't care. We don't care. The government argument is your business. Vacation is vacation. It's my personal business. I don't care. So Taiwanese people, we don't care about the political argument or history. We don't care. We care. They are beautiful. They are good. That's why we want to go there. And if you go to Japan for vacation, which one you like it? Eating. And the second one, still nature. How about the Taiwan-Japan relation? What do you think? Improved a lot. Because 2018 only is 53%. This year, 2021, 70%. Our relation is on the average is quite good. How about our relation is not so good, only 2%. But why? Why improve? 17%? For Taiwan, I think about 2 things. Vaccine. At the beginning, we cannot buy the vaccine. We are waiting. We have money. We have money. I want to pay you the money. Please sell me the vaccine. But we cannot buy the vaccine. So Japan sent the vaccine to Taiwan. So we use, the Taipei 101 to say thank you. Hollywood, the hotel in the Yunsan Hotel, they say thank you, Japan. You sent us so much, the COVID-19, for the vaccine for the COVID-19. We like it. And another one, the Abe, he just said, Taiwan issue is Japan's issue. Japan's issue is Japan, United States alliance issue. You support Taiwan. you use your word, you use your, the movement to support Taiwan. That's why we believe they support Taiwan. That's why we like it. So my suggestion is this one, new Taipei City and Taiwan, Tokyo. What's the key point? And you can see the picture over there. One of my colleagues just showed this one. It's called ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e is a traditional Japanese drawing. So it's a drawing this. So just like me, I like this dress. Why? Because I'm clean. Similar to the Japanese national flag, white, red. So he just drew this image. And how to improve our relation to Taiwan people? First one, economy, trade. Second one, culture and scholarship. And also we must follow the whole Japanese government, their policy. For example, the Kishida minister used the words called new capitalism. What is new capitalism? Must have growth, must have the distribution. So why we learn Japan? One thing, equal. The whole city is clean. If you go to Tokyo, it's very difficult for you to distinguish. This one is for the rich person to live. This one is for the poor people to live. But in Taipei, in Taiwan, you can easily to distinguish. This one is for a rich person. Rich person will live in here. Rich person will live in this building. We are normal person. We cannot live there. So it's too expensive. So you can distinguish. Even for foreigner, they can distinguish so easily. But how about Taiwan people going to Tokyo? No. Not only Tokyo, Hokkaido, the whole Japan, quite equal. So we must focus on distribution. So how about Japanese people to Taiwan image? Their image to Taiwan. For example, I just take this NHK a couple of days ago, 25. Of course, they will say the Taipei 101. But new Taipei City. Okay, we'll go to the Tiandeng Sea. Build new Taipei City. How about this one? Jiufen belong to the new Taipei City. This one? Jiufen, the anime is quite famous anime. Even Japanese people will go there to take a picture. Belong to the new Taipei City. So, to Japanese people, vacation, you must go to the new Taipei City. Thank you very much. This one is my thoughts.
Thank you, Professor Tsai, for your wonderful elaboration on the ideas to forge close ties between Taiwan, especially New Taipei City, with Japan. Thank you very much. So now, let me step aside from my earlier role as a moderator and to be a presenter to you to talk about. It's more like an echo to Tsai and also to Dr. Hattori on their observation about urban diplomacy. So. Okay, so my presentation is going to talk about urban diplomacy, what's new and why it matters. It's more like a conceptual framework for all of you to think about. Of course, as you can see, I'm an expert in traditional diplomacy, not necessarily in the city level. So I'm actually learning here. So 2 cents. So I hope that you can enjoy my presentation later. For my presentation, there will be 4 parts. The first one is about the definition. What is urban diplomacy? Followed by what's new in this idea. And then I would highlight the issue areas for urban diplomacy. And then I will share my own observation with you about the practice part. So what are the shared principles nowadays for urban diplomacy? Okay, first thing first, what is urban diplomacy? Actually, I went through the current literature in international relations, and I found out that in the past few years, actually, the idea itself has been brought up by many scholars and experts alike to talk about how to distinguish this kind of urban diplomacy, the city level interactions among state actors from the traditional diplomacy, traditional foreign policy, usually conducted by career diplomats who are actually the experts on international relations. So what are the needs? What are the focus? The term of city diplomacy entered the political science literature in the late 2000s. In order to describe the international relations of local authorities, it has roots in the post-war period through sister city programs. Nevertheless, it largely refers to mechanisms for social connection and people-to-people engagement, rather than substantive policy coordination. What is important? Why this is important? Because this is one progressive expansion of what we could call global urban governance, characterized by urban agendas and processes sprawling across several multilateral sectors. So as you can see, with the idea of urban diplomacy, actually, as Dr. Hattori just mentioned, the SDGs, there are so many different goals, so many different stakeholders involved in the whole process. Of course, the city diplomacy or the city level urban diplomacy should be included. So what are the driving forces? I highlighted 3 driving forces behind the emergence of urban diplomacy. The first one, of course, is globalization, especially the idea of emancipation of state-centrism. This is very, very important. So you can see that in beginning in the early 90s, the year, actually, I believe it's the birthday of all of you here, okay, especially for our students. The second thing is about the emergence of non-state actors. For non-state actors, some scholars are distinguished. There are 2 kinds of non-state actors. The first one is non-territorial, which means there's no territorial linkage between that actor to a specific territory. So sometimes you can see the most salient example is the role of NGOs in world politics. The other category, which means regions, cities, how they conducted interactions across the borders. The third driving force would be the common interests among states, among cities, among different groups of stakeholders. And also same concerns, shared concerns, experiences, how to make things work. And also, most importantly, solutions. What are the possible solutions for our common concern or the common problem we are facing nowadays? So I highlighted these are the 3 driving forces behind the emergence of urban diplomacy. My second part is what's new? What's new in urban diplomacy? Actually, I found out there are at least 3 different phases to help us to incorporate the idea of urban diplomacy into international relations. The first one is a very old slogan. It's called "Think globally, act locally." Okay, because the sentence came out as very popular trendy theme in early 1990s. Okay, back then we see that a lot of regionalization going on worldwide. Most governments around the world back then were trying their best to mitigate the possible shocks from those kind of highly intense interactions across the borders. So they invented the idea, think globally, act locally, which means we need to take care of local constituencies rather than other governments in the rest of the world. Okay, so stay focused. So even though we are facing globalization, we need to stay focused on dealing with domestic issues. Secondly, as Professor Tsai and also Dr. Hattori mentioned, the path of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals in 1915, which was a milestone to urban diplomacy, because I will show you later, among those 17 SDGs, there were a lot of issues relating to city diplomacy or urban diplomacy. The third thing is about the Habitat 3, the conference. The full name of it is United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development. Okay, so as you can see, this is a very important international gathering focusing on housing issue and how to make people have a better living standard. They passed a regulation or at least a statement in the year 2016, which highlighted several issues I will show you later. But why this conference is important is because the conference itself was convened every 20 years. Okay, every 20 years. So as you can see, actually United Nations set up a very long haul goal to achieve this improving living standard for human beings. So I try to, because as I mentioned, I use the term interchangeably between urban diplomacy and city diplomacy. So if you dig into a bit the existing literature on urban diplomacy, you would easily find that these two conceptions, they both fall under the umbrella term. It's called subnational diplomacy. Okay, so there is a demand for subnational diplomacy, so that in the city level, in the urban area, different stakeholders, they have the motivation to cooperate across the borders. Okay, to cooperate across the borders. Some people are saying urban diplomacy, the term itself, seems to be more progressive than city diplomacy. But I have to say, practice-wise or policy-wise, as a professor, I don't see there is a huge difference between the two terms. However, when it comes to urban diplomacy, usually it is trying to broaden the issue area to be covered, to be discussed in those. Okay, and then, as I mentioned, the set of SDGs. When they happened to the three, they held their every 20 years meeting in 2016. They actually passed a statement referring their efforts to two major goals among these 17. The first one is goal 11, about sustainable cities and communities. This is, again, what New Taipei city government is doing right now. Goal 16, which talks about peace, social justice, and strong institutions, trying to prevent possible violence and conflict in developing countries among those cities. Okay, so this is very, very important. For now, I would say, comparing to other goals, I would say goal 11 actually right now still the most salient issue for all local governments, city government, and for urban diplomacy to focus on. Okay, that is the most important goal. And for that, I did some research and I found out that, as you can see, the white book on your seat, the New Taipei city government actually was the very first city agreed to submit this voluntary local review to the SDGs. And it was the 10th city around the world who made this kind of commitment. So I personally see this as a great achievement for the New Taipei city government. Okay, and then for this one, Habitat 3, as I just mentioned, it has the key statement here. And the key message in this document, it's not a very long document, it's about 3 pages. But one thing is very, very important. Based on its estimation, by the year 2050, there will be 70% of the world's population living in urban areas. Okay, so urbanization is actually a very key issue nowadays in world politics. Okay, another thing I want to share with you is about the global trends on urban diplomacy. The first one is, as both experts before me just mentioned, there are some goals, including economic development, to attract trade and business, to promote cultural exchange, and facilitate participation in city networks. Those are very, very important tasks for urban diplomacy. In addition to that, in recent years, some scholars and experts also identify the role of city government. They mentioned that cities are recognized more explicitly as policy actors and innovators in their own right. It also explicitly identifies city halls as sources of potential policy innovation. Okay, I think this is quite important because nowadays, if you are evaluate your own city government, you can use this kind of indicators or you can develop your possible indicators to make your own judgment about the efforts put out by your city government. What is more important is nowadays, the whole thing, okay, the whole idea about urban diplomacy is more focusing on inclusiveness, okay? Trying to, previously, they talked about economic development, survival. And then lately, they talk about dignity. So for example, as I just mentioned, 2016, when the Habitat 3, they are talking about sustainable development. They try to include social justice. They try to include effective political institutions into discussion. That focus on personal dignity as well. And then we can expect, right now, I believe some experts, and I believe we can learn from Hara, who is an expert on this issue later. Right now, they are thinking about moving beyond all those issues. So what kind of inclusiveness, what kind of issues should be included? I think we can try to imagine. And then the third part in my presentation is about the possible issue areas for urban diplomacy. As Dr. Hattori just mentioned, transnational and global challenges, those are the most important things. And those are the issue areas easier for everyone to collaborate with one another. So pandemic, disease, climate change, environmental protections, those are the key issues nowadays. In addition to that, I'm not suggesting urban diplomacy is actually challenging state centrism. I see that as a complementary to what state or the central government is doing in terms of conducting international affairs or relationship across the borders. So it's not necessarily challenging the role of central government, but with one exception here, okay? I believe most of you have the vivid memory about President Trump of the United States. When he was in office, he decided to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, okay, which is a great setback from environmental protection and also climate change. So there was a group, more than 30 mayors, more than 100 business industries in the States. They actually criticized President Trump's decision and claimed that they are going to abide by the Paris Agreement about the net zero thing. Okay, so it's just for information. Okay, what are the shared principles for urban diplomacy? Right now, please open your eyes. Take a mirror in front of you if possible, then you can see what I'm going to say is about IRIS. Okay, IRIS. Okay, the first one is inclusiveness, leaving no one and no city behind. Okay, that's the idea, inclusiveness. And then followed by resilience, preparedness and recovery from future shocks and stresses. Okay, this is quite important. And then innovation, as I just mentioned, city government can be seen as a powerhouse for policy initiatives in the future. So innovation, including service integration, smart city, etc., those kind of ideas. Followed by sustainability. This is quite important and echoing what Professor Tsai just mentioned about social equality. Okay, about social equality and also safety, etc., those kind of things. Okay, so my observation about the principles for urban diplomacy in the future, I think this IRIS is quite important for us to consider. Okay, so here conclude my presentation. And I also got some feedback from Dr. Hattori and also from Dr. Tsai. I think we are on the same page. We would like to know more and maybe to learn from the board about how about the future, what's next, what should we do from here? Even though we identify the importance of urban diplomacy, but what's next? What are the next steps? Okay, so I'll stop here, finishing my presentation. Thank you very much.
I think we still have a very short period of time for question and question section. If any of you regarding to the presenters and the topics, do you have any questions or worries, please just let me know. Anyone? Okay, we're still in my class. If you raise your hand, you get extra points. I just encourage you to speak up.
Yes, don't be shy. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. So for the people's end, it's more like persistence. You just go to one single window and you can finish it. Because there will be civil servants working behind that window to coordinate, to speed up your request.
I think it's basically very similar to your personal experience if you go to Taiwan's local government ID and they will process a lot of things. To me, that was a big surprise, that Taiwan's government can handle all these issues in a very short time and in a very precise way as well. Any other questions that we always, yes, please.
I was thinking, what was the benefit for? I was thinking, what was the benefit for cities to to bring in investments like MSC? And I saw Mr. Hattori's presentation that Kumamoto has so many SDG city in comparison to other prefectures. Is that the reason why you were able to bring in TMSC into the prefecture? Yes.
Thank you very much for that question. That SDGs is the goal for a very global goal for which all sectors or all stakeholders need to be involved. So those who wants to take actions need to consider what kind of things they can do. We are, example here is a city. The city has their places which has a specific characteristics on the different places. So some are more urbanized areas, some are more local or more agricultural or forestry driven or more industry. So look at what kind of the place you are in and what kind of things they need to do or they can do to achieve the sustainable goal. In terms of the Kumamoto prefecture, that is located in the Kyushu area, which is in Japan. Hokkaido is the northern, and Honshu and Shikoku and Kyushu. Kyushu is, I think, closest to Taiwan, and also there are really unique characteristics of that region. Some are more dense population, but also there's a nature, as I mentioned, that, and especially I mentioned about the water. It's a clean water is really a unique aspect of the Kyushu area and the Kumamoto area. And the semiconductor really needs the water and the electricity and the people to the workforce to help that operations ongoing. So that really attract semiconductor industry to there. So now in the future, Kumamoto prefecture need to include that aspect in when they consider the sustainable development goal what kind of things they can achieve, perhaps more utilize digital aspects, maybe new consideration when they consider the further actions. So my suggestion is that to try to look at your surrounding and what kind of things you can do and what kind of things to achieve that goals.
So I'm happy that you asked that question. So if you have this New Taipei City's voluntary local review with you. So why New Taipei City is publishing the first city voluntary local review is because then we speak the same languages with all the cities in the world that are also promoting SDGs. So in this book, we tell the world, the cities as well as companies, what New Taipei City wants to do. For example, one of the goals, and we explained that in all the policies in New Taipei towards SDG is to use renewable energy and to achieve net zero by 2050. Then we will attract the right company to New Taipei because this is the same SDG goal as they want. It's the same thing. Then Japanese cities that are working towards the same goal will be attracted to New Taipei. Then we can collaborate on this particular issue. That means your city policies can be communicating easily with all the city and all the countries and all the industry. So in the annex, you can see we have attached our city policy goals with SDG. So we match them. So it's very easy for companies, for cities, other cities to identify what New Taipei City is doing. So when New Taipei City is telling everyone we're building more public transportation, building more metro, that means more metro companies will come to New Taipei. So I think SDG is a perfect tools, perfect language, perfect goals to share cities' policies with the world as well as with industry.
Okay, thank you, Director Yang. I think the time is almost up. May I abuse my privilege as a moderator? Dr. Tori, anything to add?
Thank you very much for those two comments about the Tokyo and the New Taipei idea. It's an idea we can nurture further about that. And also, your kind of principles of IS is really kind of thought-provoking about how we can consider about urban diplomacy. And today, in front of all students, I think we all learn a lot about which cities or even university or students can consider about what to do by yourself, and we all help. So thank you very much for this. Thank you, Jenny.
2022 New Taipei City and Tokyo relation, the first year. This one is my slogan to the government. I will suggest you, New Taipei City will become the Taiwan Tokyo, first one. Thank you.
Okay, I think here, thank you very much, Professor Tsai. I think here we can conclude our first panel for today's meeting. Please join me in giving a big applause to both presenters.
And the movement to the panel is to have a photo group photo for your guys.
Philip, would like to, Philip Ong, Deputy Representative from Singapore. James,一起，对。Lisa, please, Lisa, please, 一起。还有没有？
team 一起这样。
OK，
不要拿书或什么。对。
Look at me,
需要
one。
拿书或什么吗？对，还是拿？对。好，那先你可不可以给贵宾？对，谢谢。对。要 mask on 还是 mask off？
Mask on。 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Can we take out the
mask off？
Yeah, look at me. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
谢谢 ，thank you。
So thank you for the presenters for the panel 1, and then we will take a short break for 5 minutes, and then we switch to panel 2.
快没电了，你要充一下吗？
Yeah, I'm not very used to
I think we met maybe when I was in Taipei city government, right? That was already 4 or 5 years ago. Jacob, yes, thank At that time, you were not in Taipei city. Right. Very briefly. Sure. I hope you enjoy the event, and as you know, Jacob is now in Bangkok, but we're happy to maintain this good relationship. And we're yes. No, I have to rush. Also, Professor Wu from want to discuss it in Chinese, they feel free to more interaction. That's fine.
Okay, thank you for still being with us. This is James Chen, the faculty member of the Department of Diplomacy and International Relations in Taipei University. And this is the panel two, and we are very pleased to have the deputy representative from Singapore office in Taipei, and then deputy representative Philip Wong to give us a keynote speech. As well, in this panel, we will have the senior policy officer from the Netherlands office in Taipei, Lisa Levin, to share some of her observations from different perspectives with us. And then we are very excited and also very glad to have our discussant from National Taipei University, Dr. Tamara, whose specialty is actually urban diplomacy. So she might know even better than all of us on urban diplomacy development. So very fortunate to have this panel. And then I'm going to give the floor to Philip Wong. I just found out, a very small tiny coincidence among us three. We all go to Beijing University.
Oh.
Yeah. Representative Ong went to probably our 学长, Yeah, in the very beginning of 2000s, and then I think, Lisa went there for a master's degree. I went there for doctoral program.
Wow.
So we are all in different stage. Yeah. So eventually we are all from Beijing University, and then living here in New Taipei in Danjiang. So very interesting, coincidence. All right, so I'll give the floor to, Deputy Representative Wong, please.
Very good morning to our very good friend, Chu Zhang, we love the Taipei government. So, I just press it. Yeah. I used to dread coming to Tampines University because it's very far from Taipei, but because it's organized by the new Taipei government this time, I definitely have to come here, and I regretted for not coming because I saw it's such a beautiful campus outside, and I'm definitely going to come back next time when I'm in Taipei. So, but I think you are very lucky to have such a beautiful campus. It's a very conducive studying environment. I'm just going to start off having two segments. Mine just basically sharing my foreign service experience, and then of course talking about Singapore-Taiwan relations. But maybe I would like to pose two questions first. Number one, how many of you want to become a diplomat? Oh, so I'm just like basically speaking to nobody because I'm talking about my diplomatic experience and nobody wants to join the foreign service. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I've been in this service for 22 years, so it's not too bad. Yeah. So I think I'll be focusing on these two gentlemen here. And second question, how many of you have been to Singapore? You choose Singapore? Oh, okay. Slightly more. All right, thanks. I hope after you see this, you all sign up because this afternoon they will announce the opening of borders by the CCC. Wow. So they will. I hope you can all make the trip to Singapore. All right, I shall start by talking. I joined the Foreign Service in 1996. I was on the government scholarship by the Singapore government, and I went to Beijing University in on a bachelor's degree. So this is and I graduated in year 2000. After that, I had also a master's in NTU. So we got Beida, Nanda, so yeah. I was hoping to go to Tokyo University and get a Tongda. And then but there's no CETA, so anyway, so I just stopped at so the bigger is fine, Yeah, so I joined. Why does the government give foreign service scholarships? Because it wants to encourage people to go to non-English speaking countries. all right, because we usually send people to the US and to the UK, but we want to explore people going to Japan, Germany, France, and China. And China in 1996 is very different from the China now that we know. China in 1996 is still on the, I mean, they have not even joined the WTO, so it's a very different China that I went to in 1996. But almost every year there is some important event, you know, like 1997, there's the return of Hong Kong, and then 1998 was the Beida 100th anniversary, because this was also 100th anniversary, and then you have Bill Clinton's visit, and then 1999 is also the 50th anniversary of China, PRC, and then 1999 was also the return of Macau, you know, so there are actually significant events every year that I went there for the 4 years. Okay, so I joined, after serving in the military for 2 years, I joined the foreign ministry in charge of China, no surprise, because I was a country officer. I started in 2002, and I covered the politics and economy of China. So one of the things I did was actually to have this joint council for bilateral cooperation involving 4 pillars that we do with the PRC. You know, so you see this is the signing of the important. So this has actually been an annual meeting between Singapore and PRC leaders for the past since 2004. So almost 20 years now, you know, so every year they have a meeting at the Fuzhongli level, but for PRC, it's represented by one of the Changwei, which is now is Han Zheng, but in the past, it has always been somebody very senior. And I think for a small country to have a co-chair from the PSC is also a very significant, because he actually chaired 3 meetings with us. This is my staff pass. I look very different now. I'm very round now. Yeah, I used to be very, at least, decent looking when I first joined my class. So for these 2 young gentlemen, you got to imagine what food can do to you and fine dining can do to you in this career. Okay, then I was sent to Kuala Lumpur in 2004. I was the first secretary in charge of political. I think the work I do is more or less the same. It's sort of like you know, political analysis, reporting, economics, people to people, you know. Then, but every country has its own interesting aspects. So Malaysia is a place where it's our closest neighbor to Singapore, so it's very important to Singapore. And Malaysia has a few aspects which is quite interesting. One is royalty. It has royalty, that means it has the king, the sultans in every state. But there's also a federal government system, that means there's a central government and then also the state government. There's also elections in Malaysia, both at the federal level and there's also the state level. So a lot of things to learn, but food is very good in KL. So if you want to go for a posting in KL, I recommend you the Malaysian food is the best. Okay. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say this. Okay, then, but there is one case which I handle when I went back as assistant director, is really to handle this dispute, and that's how I get to go to Netherlands, Den Haag. It is called Haya, you know, in Chinese, where you have this peace palace where the International Court of Justice is located, and then you deal with bilateral disputes. So Singapore and Malaysia, we are friendly nations, but we have this bilateral irritant that sort of bothers us every now and then. Is because of this small little island called Pedro Blanca. So it's actually located here. By right, green is Malaysia, orange is Singapore, but this island that we want is located nearer to Malaysia geographically, and it's, I think, about the size of a football field. You know, it has a lighthouse, a BTS tower, and then some facilities for the seamen to stay. And then, okay, so guess what's the verdict? The verdict is the court gave Singapore the whole island, and then there's one small rock here, it's Malaysia. Why do we have this rock? Why do we have this whole island, even though it's quite far from Malaysia? Because of this thing called because there is this thing in the international law which calls the effective control of the place. Because Singapore has been effectively administering this lighthouse since the 1800s. So we effectively send people to maintain the lighthouse. We have control over the island, and this thing is very important in international law. All right. So despite the fact that it's physically away, then I can also agree why Middle Rocks is Malaysia, because we have never controlled Middle Rocks, right? And then geographically it is part of it. I think it makes sense. Then there is this South Ledge. The court say that, okay, whoever can determine the the sea level and anyway, this sound ledge is usually submerged in the sea. Only when it's low tide, it will come out, so not very important, but the thing is that the court say that the two of you have to discuss how do you decide the sovereignty of this sound ledge. But we are happy because we got the main island, right? This is the main part that is important to us. So that's how the court is, right? The court will have a representative from every single country, and then Malaysia can appoint one, we can appoint one. We appoint an Indian judge, all right? So each of you can appoint one. It's quite interesting if you're an international lawyer because this is the highest court in the world, because it talks about sovereignty, and all countries have to abide to it. But more importantly is to get countries to agree to come to the court because we do not want to quarrel with our neighbor every day over this thing, even though our relations are very friendly. So to come to this, you take political willpower, all right? Okay, then I was in Beijing. This is 2008 to 2011. Quite fun. Beijing was fun then. This is Mr. Hu Jingtao, the General Secretary then. Huh?
2008.
This is 2010 when I met him. Yeah. Then this is my ambassador in the embassy. There are a few events that time, Beijing Olympics, the Shanghai World Expo, but more importantly, I think we do a lot of bilateral, there's so many visits. So it's quite an important post for us because it's also one of the bigger posts that we have. And then I was sent to the UN as a Singapore delegate. This is the UN. This was before the renovation of the GA hall. Yeah, but now it's different, but this is what it is. So I was involved in human resource matters. Now the UN is very interesting is because there are so many countries and where in the fifth committee we're talking about human resource is to give money to peacekeeping forces and all this like how you spend the money. But the UN depends on every country to contribute. All right. And the UN not to, I'm talking about American friend here. The US tends not to contribute to the UN. But anyway, so we are always fighting about how to get money and all that. Then there's also the other issues like issues involving small countries. The UN is important for small countries is because every country has one vote. Whether you're a big country like the US or Russia or a small Pacific island, you have one vote. So it's very important for us to be very active in the UN. Okay, then I went back to ASEAN as a DDG. So ASEAN is very important to Singapore because it's the regional grouping that covers all our neighbors, the 10 ASEAN countries. So we almost every week I have to travel out of Singapore. Sometimes I'm in Moscow, sometimes I'm in China, sometimes in Japan. Because we have so many meetings held every week. We have about 1,000 meetings a year. But it's very important because all these meetings allow people to exchange views, like on South China Sea, on peacekeeping, on even like SDG goals, and even things like how to keep ASEAN drug-free. So it's for our common good. And the fact that because ASEAN, after 1967, we haven't seen any war between one ASEAN country and another ASEAN country. I think that is quite precious because after 1967, but now I think one of the biggest issue is we're facing is Myanmar, right? Because of the recent developments in Myanmar. So how do we treat a fellow family member? But at the same time, we want them to also stick to some of the principles that they've actually agreed in terms of treatment of the prisoners and on democracy and human rights. So this is a problem for ASEAN, but we will have to deal with it as a family because and then we engage dialogue partners. So ASEAN is 10 countries, but we have 10 dialogue partners. These 10 dialogue partners are all important: Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, EU, India. Yeah, so many of them. Okay, then I went to Shanghai as the Deputy Consul General, 副总领事. So this is 2014 to 2017. Shanghai is not Beijing. It's the biggest city in all the significant European countries. I think combined together is almost 200 over million people, which is maybe the population of Germany plus France plus UK, right? So that's the scale we're talking about in China. The person on the extreme right is Ma Yun, who is the chairman of Alibaba. The one in the middle is the Shanghai mayor, and then this gentleman is Lai Shen Chuan. Lai Sichuan is a Taiwanese playwright, An Tao Ma Yuan, and many of those nice plays. He has a theater in Shanghai, which is very good. This is our office. We have all these people here for the Singapore Consul General. This is our National Day event. Yeah. So we are watching the development of Shanghai, and then also sometimes Shanghai is actually competing with Singapore, right? So we have this competing competitive dynamics, but we also cooperate in many areas because Shanghai has is the largest pool of talent in China, right? A lot of people in the Yangtze. Then I went back to the Diplomatic Academy as a vice dean, so I was actually doing the training of foreign service officers. And then before I come to Taiwan, I went to I was the leader of this team that goes to Wuhan to evacuate Singaporeans. So I evacuated 178 Singaporeans. The one in yellow is me. So this is 2nd of February 2022. It was just at the beginning of the crisis. I've never seen a Chinese airport so empty because there's only Singaporean waiting for the Singapore plane to bring them back to Singapore. So that's me and my team member, and we are in the middle is our foreign minister, Dr. William Balakrishnan. Okay, then now I'm back here in Taiwan, which I'm going to show what we actually do for Singapore-Taiwan relations later, but basically these are the people that we are. I try to be fair, I also show your opponent. Yeah, but Mayan has given me local produce, yeah. Chong, yeah. I think I chong for 1 month. Yeah, so and then of course I've met a lot more people, but I don't want to show, I just want to show 4 of them because there are a lot of other photos with other leaders, but we are very close to both parties, the KMT and also the TPP and all that, but we have a traditional, long-standing history and relations with the KMT, because of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. So later, so now I'm going to talk about Singapore-Taiwan relations. Actually, although Singapore is independent for 57 years, but our history goes back 100 years, okay, because it goes right to the start of the ROC founding. There is this Wan Qingyuan, which is the Sun Yat-sen National. This is a villa where the Tongmeng Hui used it as its headquarters in Southeast Asia, Nanyang headquarters, to have all the counter-revolutionary activities in the Xinhai Revolution, right?
It's a straight club now?
It's still, no, it's now a museum, So every year, the Taipei, your representative will present flowers to Guofu, Dr. Sun Yat-sen here. Yeah, this is your ambassador, this representative in Singapore, Francis Liang. So he leads this group to this thing. Yeah. Okay, why I mentioned this later, I'll go on. And then of course, because Singaporeans consider themselves as part of ROC then, right? Nanyang, Huaqiao. So because of that, our feelings for the motherland is not to Singapore. The feelings for the motherland is to ROC, right? In the 30s, And because there was a war between ROC and Japan, because in the 1930s, there are many migrant. I would say that they are from Nanyang Chinese who sign up as mechanics and drivers. Nanqiao Qigong, who went all the way to Yangon to bring, because Japan has blockaded the sea coast, so nothing can go into China coast. They have to go through the Yunnan, Myanmar, Burma road, right, to bring resources into the west side of China. So these Nanyang people, they actually go up, but they need drivers to drive all the goods into the Dahou farm, So I think 3,000 Singaporeans went for this thing. And then this is still again this. So inside this villa, what is interesting is that the first ROC flag was sewn in this. Yeah. So there are actually three 4个方案, for Dr. Sun to pick, and he picked the last one. And Teo Eng Hock and his wife sold the flag. So in this Singapore. I mean, this is just what I've heard, but whether it's true or not, you're going to ask Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Okay, and then after that, of course, we have in between, we have all kinds of, because in the ROC, they even have Consul General and all that, but after that, really when talking about when Singapore became independent in 1965, we decided to have office. We have not established any diplomatic relations with ROC, so there's nothing called 断交，我们没有建交也没有断交 but the thing is that we have trade relations with Taiwan all along. But because we also have not established any diplomatic relations with the PRC until 1990, so actually we have no relations, diplomatic relations with both PRC and ROC at that time. Okay, but still we have trade. So the Taipei set up an office in Singapore in 1969, and then in 1979, this is still where our office is at Renai Yuan, you know. And Taiwan actually sent a lot of, in the early days, our Singapore first chief of Air Force was a Taiwanese. Yeah, Liu Jingquan, you know, Taiwan人, Hongjun Zhongzhang. And it's because after that, in the 1970s, there was a lot of exchange between Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and President Jiang Qingguo at the time, and then they sort of talk about the relation, you know, trying to, I think more important for Singapore is because we are a small country, but we need land to train our military forces after we become independent. So at the time, President Jiang has agreed, you know, for us to use land we have actually a few camps in Taiwan. So with the agreement, we started this thing called the Singapore Tubei. You know, so if you are aware, if you are living in south like Pingdong or near this like the Checheng, Hengchun area, you can see a lot of this 右边驾驶 this kind of vehicle. I mean now because it's pandemic, you know, but yeah, before pandemic you can see a lot of troops coming. So they train here, but it's an open secret, but it's something that we keep low profile because we only training ourselves. We don't train with Taiwan, but we train ourselves. But we thank Taiwan for the offer of the land, which is very useful to us because in southern Taiwan, at least 20 or 40 years ago, there's still a lot of jungle, but now it's very urbanized. You know? Yeah. Okay, so then after that, when Mr. Jiang Qingguo passed away in 1988, almost the whole Singapore cabinet visited his funeral. You know, so I think it's very rare that a country's 内阁, 全体内阁 visit Taiwan to visit a funeral of another leader. So this is only for President Jiang Qingguo. And then his successor, President Lee Teng-hui, visited Singapore in 1989, you know, just before he met Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. So this is the first visit to a non-diplomatic country, diplomatic relations country by President Lee. We call him Taiwan Lai de Zhongtong. Yeah, you know, this is, I think if you're interested in generation, this is a very creative way of calling. Yeah. And then of course after that, we try to play a role and hopefully, you know, to have at least peaceful and stable relations across Strait region. So at the time, you have the both sides, the Straits Exchange Foundation, and then also the Association for Relations Across the Taiwan Strait, ARAX, both the chairman, Wu Zhenfu and Wang Daohan. So I mean, this is the basis of this is of course the 1992 consensus that has been decided in Hong Kong that, you know, that they have this thing that they recognize that there's one China, but of course, you know, Taiwan side says with Asian integration, yours is PRC and ROC, but at least we believe that there's one China. So based on this basis, you have this meeting, one meeting. And then of course, then Prime Minister Lee, who is the deputy, visited Chen Shui-bian. This is 2004. He was received by then I think Fu Yue秘书长, Su Zhenchang. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyway, this one. Then this is during the Ma government. We are also one of two countries that signed FTA with Taiwan. The other one is New Zealand. So this was the A step in 2013. I try to go very fast because there's so many things. Okay, then this is the Lee Kuan Yew state funeral where President Ma visited Singapore to visit the private wake, and then we invited Su Zhenchang, Lian Zhan, Hao Bo-chun, and this Vincent Xu to the state funeral. You know. Okay, then we have the Ma Xi-hui. Again, this is the first meeting between the two leaders on both sides, and after that, President Ma met Mr. Lee Hsien Loong in his office, and he posted this on Facebook, and my Prime Minister saying President Ma from Taiwan. Okay, so then we also have a lot of close relations, like our Prime Minister will meet Morris Chang, and then this whoever this is called the APEC setting. Every year during APEC, we will have a breakfast with the Taiwanese leader. That's buying with the Malayan. Yeah. Okay, so then after that, because of the the new southbound policy by President Tsai, so which covers all these countries, so we are part of it. And we are very important country for Taiwan because we have a lot of we are the financial hub, the human resource hub, bilingualism, then we have all this exhibition status, and we also in the court of arbitration. So the big 500, almost one third have the Taiwan sixth largest trading partner and fifth largest export market. Okay, then we have a lot of local cooperation, visiting farms, whether it's tourism or tourists, and this Kaohsiung is added this new line built by a Singapore company. Yeah, and then so these are some of the things that we go to the various cities, and this with Taipei, that's Huang Shan and me inside the fireman suit. We have a Singapore artist exhibition. This is Audrey Tang with Xinjiang银行 DBS, and then we have our Jieyun, actually we have a lot of cooperation, and then our animals also have a lot of cooperation, So you send this Singapore Zoo has just sent these two monkeys to Taipei Zoo. Yeah. And then of course Singapore food, Taiwan food is very popular in Singapore, Taiwan and all that. Yeah. Singapore food is also very popular. This guy is he owns the Taichung's only Michelin 2-star restaurant called J. So this is Mr. Lim, because he's the young Singaporean chef from Wucha and and then our Singaporean artists have also fastened in Taiwan. So I don't know whether you know them. I think I know some of them, like India, who has won the Qingqu Li Yingshun, and then JJ, Sun Yanzi, Wang Jinglun, Qiu Fengzhe. Yeah. Okay, then so of course we have a lot of culture and arts. So many of them, the Yunmeng Museum in Singapore. This is a Singapore, this Marina Bay Sands, but we have this thing called Gardens by the Bay, and this is by Li Guangyu, Taiwanese sculpture. So this is now given to Singapore, and it's now inside this. So if you visit Singapore, you can visit this sculpture. Yeah, again, we have so many of these theater, orchestras, art exhibition. Yeah, then we Singaporeans, we have a lot of Hakka. So Taiwan, we have also a lot of Hakka. So we can also bring Hakka. Tourism, we are quite popular destination, because of the similarity. You go to Singapore, you have a lot of English signs, so you feel that you're actually quite different. You go to another country. So yeah, and we're also trying to have agriculture. So Singapore does have agriculture, but we're looking into vertical farming and all these things. So Taiwan can provide. And in our supermarkets, we have a Taiwan corner for all the Taiwanese food, and then Chenju, all this kind of. This in the south, they will sell the fruits to Singapore. If China doesn't want, we will take it. Yeah. And then okay, so this is something that I participated. So I'm here. I came to Taipei in 1994, and I was exchanged at Zhongzhen Gaozhong. So every year we have 100 Singaporeans coming to Taipei, and we exchange with Jianguo Beiyi, Chengkong, Shida Fuzhong, Jinmei. So some of these, and then every year they change schools, but our school is still the very top 5 schools, and then we come here. So this has been going for almost 40 years. The former culture minister, Chen Ying-jun, used to take part in this thing, so I took part in this thing. So when we visited Singapore, there was a welcome dinner, and then the Taiwanese would have some performance. Yeah, so this is something very unique to us. So 3 very unique things. Our military training in Taiwan. Singapore is the FTA. Our FTA is one of only 2 countries in Taiwan. And then this student exchange at the high school level is 40 years, So we come here for 1 month, we stay with the students, we speak Mandarin. You come to Singapore for 1 month, you speak in English, so this is very good. Yeah, this is the Taojuyi. So like Hualien, there was an earthquake in 2018, so Singapore sent humanitarian assistance, and then so this is a lot. Okay, so this is very quick wrap up. Sorry. Yeah. but I'm trying to say that we have a very special relationship with Taiwan. We will maintain this special relationship, but we keep things low profile, but we do a lot of substantive things below the radar. And this is things that actually matters because they will bring benefits to the peoples of Singapore and Taiwan. Now that the borders are open, you can expect a lot of Singaporeans to come to Shilin Market, to Ximending and all that. So, yeah, I hope this is a short presentation of what our bilateral relations are about. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. I think Representative made us, Taiwanese people and Singaporean people, they are very close together. We are not too far away. Culturally, and also speaking the same language. Okay, so next one, excuse me. Next one, I would like to invite the senior policy officer from National Office in Taipei, Lisa Nicholas, to give us, her insights and observations on urban diplomacy. Lisa, please.
I will turn it to the screen. First, I would like to thank New Taipei City for inviting me to this forum. I'm very honored to be invited as part of the panelists with so many experienced speakers. And yeah, today I'm going to share something with you on urban diplomacy and our city-to-city interactions. Yeah, so I will start with a short self-introduction. And I will tell you a bit about the work of the Netherlands Office Taipei, what does, for example, a day in our office looks like, just so you have a little bit better idea what we are working on. And then I will dive into city-to-city relations. We'll talk about a few cities in the Netherlands that have especially strong relations with Taiwanese cities. And then I will conclude with some tips for working in the field of international relations, since I think I'm one of the youngest panelists here, so I might be a bit closer to you in terms of age, and there were some things I thought about after graduating, before graduating, that I think are very good to consider in terms of your future career prospects. Okay, first I will talk a bit about myself. So I have an academic background in Asian studies, communications, and politics and international relations. I studied China studies at KU Leuven in Belgium, and then I also studied Master of Communication Studies in also. And for the politics and international relations master, I went to School of International Relations. And yeah, that was also a very good experience. I think we have a lot to share in terms of that. Well, in my studies and also after my studies, I interned at several organizations. One of them was the provincial government in the Netherlands, the Limburg province. That's the province I'm from, so it made sense to see how relations work at that level. And I also interned, for example, at the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is kind of an American NGO who works on resource management, environmental issues, advocacy. After that, I worked at the European Commission, EG International Partnerships. EG International Partnerships used to be DEFCO, Development Cooperation. It's basically development cooperation with different countries. I was in the Africa unit, so that means institutional relations between the European Union and the African Union. And in that time, I was mainly helping to prepare the summit between the African Union and the European Union. And then this year, I joined NLT, so only quite recently, I came to Taiwan in March of this year. So about the Netherlands Office Taipei. I'll give you a quick overview. So the Netherlands Office Taipei is like the representation of the Netherlands in Taiwan. We promote and support cooperation between Taiwanese and Dutch institutions in the field of commerce, investments, innovation, culture, and agriculture. We also like to promote key Dutch values and initiate engagement with the Taiwanese people. And we also, of course, as an office, handle visa application and consular matters. You can see on the right side a picture of our representative, on the left bottom side, and some of our colleagues, both Dutch colleagues and Taiwanese colleagues. These are different departments: economic innovation, investment, agriculture, food, culture, visa, and culture. My role, the role of me, which you can see, for example, in what it looks like if you work at the Netherlands office Taipei, is on the intersection of the cultural department and the economic department. For example, I keep track of socio-economic developments in Taiwan, policy developments such as developments in the offshore wind sector, in which many Dutch companies are active here in Taiwan. And for example, I also, for example, look into policy offices in the Netherlands, in different cities, zoals Almere, which we will touch upon later. And we might have a meeting with, for example, a Dutch architect bureau who has a project in Taiwan. For example, I think you all know the Taipei Performing Arts Center, the big circle hall in Sydney. It's designed by a Dutch architect, so we try to find some interaction. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's actually a lot of engagement in terms of architects as well. And then, for example, we also collaborate with other offices here. For example, with ETO, the European offices, we discuss, for example, how we can truly participate in a pride parade or other working groups or activities. Now I will dive into the history of city diplomacy. I think the previous speakers already touched upon many of these topics. Well, actually, I think city diplomacy goes back a very long time ago. Before modern states were established, basically before the Peace of Westphalia, which we might have heard about in 1648, international relations. But before that time, cities were actually pioneers of foreign policy. And when you go back to, for example, ancient Greece, Athens and Macedonia had very much interaction. So that already shows that for a long time cities can have a very important role in this aspect. If we go back to current day, as Dr. Ye already highlighted, since the 1990s, 2000, city diplomacy has really kicked off around the world. And for nowadays, for example, more people actually live in cities than in urban areas. So that also really highlights how important city diplomacy actions allow you for a localized targeted approach. So it's really possible to, at the local level, engage on different topics. And this also helps, for example, which was already said before, when you talk about climate change or energy issues or waste management, cities actually have considerably authority over land use and urban planning issues. And that really helps to interact and be able to make a difference in this aspect. And also another advantage is it's possible to do city urban form. And we as the Netherlands of Taipei help with finding a speaker so that local governments can actually influence national governments in a way that they can advocate, they can lobby at their national governments to get certain change and certain challenges. And then also through this networking between different cities in different countries, it is possible to solve global challenges at a localized level, such as climate change. And the last one is cultural city relations, exchanging values. I can give you a very good example of this. You know, for example, Amsterdam is a city that really, in terms of inclusivity and the pride rate, for example, LGBTQ rights, really is a front runner. And at some point, the city in Latvia, in Riga, wanted to organize their first pride parade, but they really had issues to organize because it was their first pride parade. It might be a little bit sensitive topic. So the Amsterdam local government actually helped to interact with the local officers there and help them make the event a success and have a successful pride parade. So that's a way how you can have changing values, similar values, help to build relations between cities. Okay, just so for you have an idea, the Netherlands actually, in terms of size, is very similar to Taiwan. Super similar. We have a little bit less people. We only have 17 million. Taiwan has 423 million. And we are also very similar in terms of the governance system, with both democratic governments. There's also, of course, a historical angle between the Netherlands and Taiwan, goes way back 400 years ago, almost, we had establishment of the Dutch Far East Company, and then it was 40 years that the Dutch were actually in Taiwan, in the south, in Tainan, where there was a lot of interaction between them. And then you see in, let's see, I don't think that's on this one, the next one, yeah. In 1991, we actually established our first Netherlands Trade and Investment Office. And you see, especially last century, there was a lot of interaction between Netherlands and Taiwan in terms of investment. Philips, which you all know, this company invested in Taiwan in several companies, ASML. So we have a lot of connection points in that regard. For example, you can see that over 200 plus companies, Taiwanese companies, active in the Netherlands. And there's also many Dutch companies active in Taiwan. For example, Philips, Heineken, ASML. So, I would like to talk a bit about developments in the city-to-city relations in the Netherlands. Like, what do we see now? What are the current developments that you can see in terms of city relations in the Netherlands? Well, in the Netherlands, Dutch people are very practical. And at some point I think in beginning 2000 to, let's say, 2018, before COVID, it was a very tendency to have like city-to-city friendship relations, twinning, as they call it, between different cities. But at some point now you see there's more tendency to move away to more thematic cooperation. So more cooperation on certain topics, like for example, Utrecht, who specializes in low carbon or health, and they would like to cooperate with cities who also are focusing on certain topics like that. And then, so I think that's one of the main first developments that I see, from friendship cities to a more content-based thematic approach. And this is actually very funny because at some point there were some cities had so many city relations with different cities around the world, and yet the Netherlands is very small, so you would have a very small city of maybe with only 50, 60,000 citizens, and then have a city relation with maybe a city in China or the US or wherever that have maybe millions of citizens. So it's sometimes funny to see that dynamic of city relations. So yeah, cities like Utrecht said, no, we stop with city-to-city relations. We just want content-based thematic approach. Then there's another tendency towards city profiling. Like for example, I think every city also maybe for refugees. I think it's a very good way to interact. And other cities in the Netherlands, for example, Utrecht is now focusing on having more like smart healthcare as their way of standing out. Of course, as already mentioned, The Hague is the city of law. Amsterdam wants to be more like a metropolitan area. Eindhoven calls itself Brainport because all the technological semicon industry is based in Eindhoven. Eindhoven is a very famous technical university, so it's that kind of the technological center of the Netherlands. And then I think already explained by other speakers, cities are really climate action nowadays. So I think these three developments I can see from a Dutch perspective in terms of city-to-city relations. So now these are actually the cities that that have most interactions in Taiwan. For example, Tainan, Taichung, New Taipei City. They all have some sort of interaction relation with these cities. Utrecht is in the center of the Netherlands. Eindhoven is more, the technological center. Almere is a bit in the north, The Hague, and then Amsterdam. As you can see, these cities all have different priorities. Actually, they have different focus areas. Even at some point, Eindhoven told me, "Oh, we are not doing as much anymore low carbon mobility. We gave that to Utrecht." So you really see that also internally. Is actually cooperation between cities. Where do we want to focus on? And I think what you do see is that basically all cities have some kind of a component of green. So what you also need to take into consideration, I think, is that every country works different, and the local government also works different. And in the Netherlands, it's very common to use a model called the polder model. The polder is actually a big part of the Netherlands is actually below sea level. So what they did at some point is even one province in the Netherlands that was not there before. It became people, they threw away the water, they made it into land, and that's what they call polder in Dutch. This is actually a model of decision making. It's a matter of compromising, it's a matter of multi-stakeholder approach. So you get all people around the table and you keep discussing till you finally have a solution that is acceptable to all sides. There are various pros and cons of this kind of a model. Work quite slow, not that fast. Why are they not replying? But that's because they're very much into consulting all different stakeholders and sides. But yeah, it's a model of consensus building, and I think it shows that it's important to keep in mind every local context, also with city relations. Then lastly, I would like to conclude with just some tips for working in the field of international relations, things that I thought about myself, but also I think are very important to consider now that you're still students. I think the importance of networking is very obvious, of course, but I can give a great example, I think, through interactions with your fellow students, with teachers, with professors, with maybe representative organizations. You can really get to know how it is to work in different fields. And for me, myself, for example, the current job that I have, I got through a friend who said like, oh, this job really sounds like something for you. That's something maybe you would be good at. So actually, if it wasn't for that contact, that friend that I had, I wouldn't have known about the job and I wouldn't have applied. So I think that really underlines the importance of networking. Then of course, it's really good to try out different industries, both private and public. It really helps to get a better image of what do you want to do later. What do you want to focus more on policy? Do you want to focus more on working in private sector? For example, me, I always thought, hey, I want to work in the government sector because I can make an impact on people's lives. But then I found out that actually some private entities can even make more impact in terms of because they have huge budgets, they really try to, with their products, they can make an impact. So it's not, if you have an IR background, you do not necessarily need to only think about government organizations. You can also consider a government relations position in a private sector. And of course, as a student, we have the chance to try out many different industries through internships. So I really encourage you to take this chance to try this out. For me as well, I've worked at several different levels, European Union, provincial government, now more like national government, and it really helps to see the differences. Then there's also a difference between policy making versus implementing. Something I really noticed when I was working at EU. At EU was very much focused on policy making. So you're writing these big strategies, but it was often very hard to see how can you implement this? How is this implemented on the ground? And that's why I thought now, at the Netherlands Office Taipei, you get more chance to see how strategies are implemented and how you can actually see the results of what these policies mean. So that's something you can think of. Would you like to work more in policy making or more in policy implementation? And lastly, do you want to be a generalist or a specialist? This is a very interesting question, I think, because something I asked myself, I'm actually more of a generalist because, but also not, because I study China studies or Asian studies, and Asian studies is per definition interdisciplinary. And I think the advantage of being a generalist is that you can have a broad view from different industries and solve problems interdisciplinarily. And I think this is very much needed with problems such as climate change and energy transition. But then a lot of companies are sometimes also looking for more specialists in terms of, I want a specialist that can exactly tell me or the energy transition and what this is about. And I know that the field of politics and international relations is very broad. So I think it's still good to see if you can find some kind of a niche or a region that you could focus on, or a certain aspect of policy making. I think that really helps to think about in terms of your future career prospects. Okay, I think that was this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you feel welcome to